Do you remember? Do you remember the last show that we did in Pine Bluff? And do you remember you pulling up in the car next to me? Do you remember what you did?
No, refresh my memory. I remember the show because it was shit.
I'm crying. Right? I'm so depressed. I'm
Because
crying.
we all knew.
And everybody goes to the ring and everybody's having a beer together.
You held out hope a lot more than most, though. You really did. Like, you were an optimist all the way to the end.
I tried because Paul kept telling me, and okay. So I'm upset and I get in the car and we're driving and Nova pulls up. I don't even know who was in our cars. And he goes like this, roll down the window. I roll down the window and he goes, although we've come.
Oh, yeah, to the end. Yeah, I did. Yeah. Yeah, because you were so sad. It wasn't uncommon for ECW. Like, I was 100% known as like the asshole, smart aleck.
Yeah, but you and I were always friends.
Yeah, of course.
Always friends.
We all were. Like, nobody ever really, like, hated each other. Even people who had
no heat.
And had the quote-unquote heat with, brother. I never really hated any of them. There was a couple of them who rubbed me the wrong way every now and then.
Yeah.
But I never cared about it years later. Like, to me, like Dreamer said at one time, like, the ECW heat died with ECW. And I always felt the same way. Like, I just never really, I don't know, man. There was no giant amount enough money for me to be so mad at somebody that I'd stab him in the back or finish him off or just like so incensed that they screwed me over for this pot of gold. You know what I mean? It was full gold. I mean, we were there for the love of it. We all liked each other. We had a great time. I've been asked way more in my lifetime, what was it like to wrestle at the ECW arena, than I was ever asked about wrestling at the Garden, at a WrestleMania, in LA, in Tokyo, and any of it. Yep.
Yeah. A lot
to the tables. I mean,
a lot of the boys always say to me, you know how lucky you are that you worked for ECW? We would kill to work for ECW. Like, and I'm just like, I do.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys who are fans or in the business now. Like, guys, I'm not going to name all the names, but there's a shitload of guys who are in the business now who I met over the years who said to me their goal when they got into wrestling was to wrestle for ECW. Like, it wasn't to be a WWE superstar, WCW. Nobody ever, first of all, nobody ever mentions WCW. Ever.
No.
That's not a knock because we both had a lot of friends that worked there.
Oh, of course.
I've never had a single person that said to me, man, I can't believe it. WCW went out of business and that was it. Like, never. Like, there's talent on the WWE roster right now, like main roster talent, who told me when they were growing up as kids that they were huge ECW fans, that's where they wanted to wrestle.
How did you get involved with ECW? You mentioned earlier that you met Dreamer and Stevie, through your training.
Give you a good hint. We have a mutual benefactor in that, in Levy.
Okay.
So here's how it started. I was at a New Jack City wrestling show in New Jersey.
Yes.
Donnie, we were all there doing the show. It was beginning of 96. The main event on the show was Levy versus Mikey. Mary Kate was there. Her mom was there. Bella doing the T-shirts. Everybody was there. So intermission comes, and I'm wrestling on the show, the superhero cape, the outfit, the whole deal, in a tag match. After intermission,
you Nova? Are you
yeah,
Nova?
Supernova, okay. The whole deal. So I met Levy in passing, just like, hey, what's going on, man? At the show, I never met him before, but Stevie was already teaming with him and stuff. Stevie was getting pushed in ECW tag team champion all this time, because I went to the ECW arena several times as a fan. Even though I was at Mike Sharp's, just like in the audience to see the show, because Stevie would get his tickets. And I was like, holy shit, this is incredible. Never in a million years thought I'd be there. So Levy's on the show. At intermission, Bella says to me, hey, Nova, Scotty wants to talk to you. Because I was on early on the show. I'm like, oh, shit, what did I do wrong? And I only knew him at this point. He's like Johnny Polo and all that stuff in Ravens. Like, oh, my God, why do you want to talk to me? So he pulls me aside. He's like, hey, man. He's like, this superhero thing, is it like, are you serious with this or what? It's like, this is like Adam West Batman kind of? I go, yeah. He goes, this is great. He goes, get me a tape of just your ring entrances, running around with the kids, doing cartwheels and all that. He goes, I want to show it to Paul and Tommy and Taz. I'm making a little group in ECW. He goes, I got Stevie there. He goes, we're getting this big fat guy from Philadelphia named him, I'm going to call him the Blue Meanie from Yellow Submarine. I had no idea what the hell that was. So, I was like, okay,
so this is 95?
This is late 95, beginning at middle 95.
Okay.
So I said, okay, I'll put the tape together. I go home, and this is when you had to have 2 VCRs to like record. So I'm making this highlight tape of me doing my ish. And Levy says, hey, bring the tape up to Moon Dancers and drop it off for me. I'm like, all right, no problem. So I'm home, and I'm looking at, like, the phone book and all this stuff. Like, what is Moon Dancers? Well, it's a strip club.
Of course it is.
So I put the tape together, and me and Donnie B and Rocco Dorsey, we go to Moon Dancers one night to look. Now, imagine us three walking in, like, our normal cities and all that, walking into the Moon Club to go find
a gimmick.
Oh, my God. There he is. We walk in. There's Levy behind the DJ thing, putting himself over, doing whatever. Walk in. I give him the tape. He says, oh, thanks a lot, kid, the whole deal. I leave. 3 days later, I get home from Wendy's. That's where I was working at the time. And my mom's like, hey, there's some guy named Raven or something on the answer machine. He left you a message. And I'm like, oh, my God, really? So he's like, yeah, hey, kid, I saw your tape. Taz and Tommy, they really loved it, man. Come on down to the next arena show, and we'll see what we can do for you. So I'm already freaking out, like, oh, my God. So the next arena show, I go down there, and to this day, it was, besides Olivia's birth, it was the scariest moment of my life. Walking toward the entranceway where it was, and it was Ronnie Atlas was out there. And I said, hey, can you go back there and tell Raven that a guy named Nova's here for him? So like 5 minutes later, Ronnie comes through the curtain and goes, hey, come on back. I'm like, holy shit, here it is. I walk in the back. The first one that came up to me was Beulah. She's like, hey, I saw your tape too. I saw it. It's really funny. You're the superhero, right? I'm like, yeah. I was like, hey, nice to meet you. And then Tommy came over eating a hot dog. He's like, hey, Dino Santa, how you doing? Because I knew him from Dino's. And he hands me a hot dog and goes, I love your tape, man. It's great. If you just want to start showing up to the shows, we'll have you come out to the ring with Scotty. You be part of whatever the hell he wants to do with this flock thing. Here's your first payday. And he handed me a hot dog. And I was like, well, thanks. And that was it. I just started going to the shows, doing the flock stuff with Raven and Stevie and Meanie. And looking back on it, we were nothing more than the window dressing to his act. And that's what we were. I mean, Scotty brought a whole bunch of us in. Like a lot of us got to be brought in as like extras. And then through the hard work and what we did to get ourselves over, we took the ball and ran with it. We got up everybody. Right. There was so many people that would come to ECW and just kind of like showed up. They try to be part of the act. And Jesus Christ, we can name a ton of people like that. But that's how it all started.
Do you feel like, you said it earlier, people just wanted to work in ECW? You had a pretty good career in WWE. How did you get Tommy's job in the office, and which company did you like working for better? I know
because honestly,
but I want people to hear it.
I always this is going to sound really crazy, but I'm telling you, take this advice if you're listening to this. If you can try to be successful outside the ring too, and not just always come across as a wrestler. Like, I always viewed myself as someone who was in the wrestling business. I never viewed myself as a wrestler, brother. I didn't. So I was college educated. I was intelligent. I was well-spoken. I was regimented. And I always tried to not only just worry about the working inside the ring, I worried about the working outside of the ring, which carries over into the real world. I tell my people all the time, the real world is a work. If you learn how to work the gimmick in the real world, you can get over. That's all that matters. So in WWE, I had been through OVW. I've been through the system. I've been well-traveled. I knew everybody in the independents. So when they were getting ready to launch ECW, Tommy Dreamer in an office setting was probably like somebody with a size 12 foot trying to wear like a size 5 shoe. It just wasn't a good fit. This is out of his mouth. He hated it. The highlight of Tommy's day was walking around Titan Tower with thumbtacks, sticking him in his head to walk into the offices of the other employees who was there to freak them out, or taking pencils and throw them in the ceiling and watching them stick. But Tommy helped out a lot of guys because you could like good old boy it kind of back then still. And the minute they were thinking about relaunching ECW, I knew that Simon Dean, I was kind of burnt out on SmackDown. I kind of hated going because it just was a miserable place to be. There were so many guys there that gave you a hard time, and it just was lousy. And today's environment is apparently a million times better. So I think a lot of the guys that are there now should be very thankful for what they have. But there was a bunch of pieces of shit I was around. I hated going. And they asked me the opportunity. I said, you know what? If there's a chance to be able to be behind the scenes and help out young talent so they don't get lost in the mix to try to get them a shot, I took it. So because I knew I was never going to be a lifer either. I figured I'd be there for a couple of years maybe and then move on. Like there was no part. I'm 48. There was no part in any of my plan that ever said I'm going to be working in the pro wrestling business when I'm in my 40s. Ever. I never, ever thought it. I always wanted to do more. Always.
Right.
And I liked wrestling. There's parts of WWF, WWE like I liked. I met some lifelong friends there. It was cool. And, honestly, when we grew up, we were WWE fans. Like, that's the place you always wanted to wind up. So nobody can ever tell us, like, something's impossible. Because even, like, when my employees do, they say something's impossible. Or just that I hold up one of my action figures, and I'm like, well, this was impossible. I'm like, getting to 25 new households for the month, that's not impossible, guys. This, as like a fat Mark kid from Tom's River, New Jersey, this was impossible. I mean, you got to put stuff in perspective, right? So, but I love, there's just something about ECW, being part of it. We just were all a cool group. I hung out with everybody from, whether it was Van Dam or Sandman, the top guys, or talking to Paul, or even traveling with Randy in the van, or whatever the hell we were doing, man. We just all had a good time. We were all in our late 20s, early 30s, if that, traveling around, having a good time. I mean, I didn't partake in a lot of the craziness that everybody else, a lot of the guys did. They had a lot more fun than I did in that aspect. But I got to see the United States, man. I got to travel. I had fun. We had a great time.
Would you have left if the company continued?
I don't know, because like when they were getting ready to collapse, we knew it was going south. Like before the Pine Bluff show, I had already talked to Johnny Ace, who was in WCW. Johnny Ace had called me multiple times to bring me in the cruiserweight division. So I knew ECW, and I was like, Paul said if something happens, he's going to bring us all in, that kind of deal. All right, that's cool, man. And, it is what it is. But if they had kept going, me and C.W. Anderson would have feuded over the TV title. Because right when we collapsed, right when we folded, I was in peak physical condition. I was over. I had a huge following. I was getting one of the best reactions of the night. I mean, that's just reality. And go back and watch the pay-per-views. When my music would hit, the place would go apeshit. And because they saw me go from a flunky running around the ring with Scotty to teaming with Meanie, doing the BWO, the metamorphosis through that, teaming with Chetty, all through that. And now, like, the fans felt like they took that 5-year ride with me. So now I was getting ready to pay it off. Like, I was looking forward to wrestling Jerry Lynn and Van Dam and, like, all those guys in legitimate matches. Yeah. Like, real matches where the fans would have bought the false finishes. Not a shit would have been Nova from the BWO wrestling against Rob Van Dam. It would have been like Nova is kicking the kick-ass Nova versus Rob Van Dam.
I feel like we had so much experience at that point under our belts, and we had so much more to give. And I think that's why it hurt me so much the way it went under, because we hung on for dear life. We sunk with the ship, right? We stayed. Yep. But we had come so far, and just all of us we've grown so much in that company, and we were all at the top of our game, like you said. And then it was just like the rug was pulled from under us, and that pisses me off to this day.
Imagine buying stocks, right? So let's envision all of us are a stock, and over 5-year time, each one of our stock keeps raising and raising and raising, and the stock is about to go bananas. And then all the companies go bankrupt. Like, that's how I viewed us. Like, all of our stock was about to become Amazon, and then the company just went away, which is crazy because we had video game deals, action figure deals, the TNN thing collapsed. That was the shits. But I mean, there were so many things that went wrong that it was, especially what always bothered me was WWF buys WCW. So that's one of the competitors went away. So in theory, if we'd been able to hold on for another like 6 months to a year, it just would have been us and the WWF.
Do you have a theory? Because for me, I think back, and people ask me all the time, and I never know how to answer this question, honestly. And maybe I'm just naive, or I'm just dumb and I missed something. Do you think that Paul did not want to sell the company to, like, say, a Billy Corrigan who allegedly offered him $1 million to take ECW, right? Do you think Paul did not want to sell it because that was his baby and he didn't want anyone else to have it?
I do. I think that he ultimately, no matter what, like, look, I have no ill will towards Paul Heyman. He was a wrestling promoter. Here's the thing. Paul Heyman was a wrestling promoter, and I wrestled for Paul Heyman. That's it. Our relationship never really went much further than that. He was the boss. I was an employee. Hey, Paul, what's up, boss? Like, that was it. Like, I mean, there was a lot of resentment. yeah, it was money owed after collapse and all that. Sure, whatever. I mean, but that's all like it's not tangible money that I can. There was bonuses and pay-per-view and like all that stuff. So it sucked. But I'm not mad about it. But I do think, at the end of the day, the company that Paul started went bankrupt and went under, and it went away. So I think that probably in the back of his mind, he always thought that they could salvage it or save it or something. I don't think he sat around at the 11th hour saying, I'm good. I'm going to get out of here and let them hold the bag and get the hell out of Dodge. I just don't. Over the years, I've changed my stance on that. I just don't. It definitely bothered him too. Like, there's no way on earth he didn't sit up multiple nights to be like, I can't believe this is happening. Because there was no guarantee that he was going to go walk in the door somewhere either. I mean, Paul didn't he had probably nuclear heat in some places with people, and probably still to this day. There's like weird old-timer heat thing where people hate each other until they go to the grave. So, I mean.
No, I know. I just never know how to answer that question because we were kind of in the dark for most of the ride.
Always.
You know what I mean? Like, we just showed up and worked, and if we got paid, it was a bonus, and if we didn't get paid, we would just all sit around and
we'd say we'll get pizza and just give it to the next check.
Buy a pizza and share slices and just kind of hang out with each other.
If we sat there at the end of the night, and when Debbie Beaumont came walking over or sent Finnegan or one of the guys or Pee Wee with your little paper check and gave it to you, and you opened it up and there's a couple weeks worth of pay on there, you're like, yes. And then the big rib, I used to go to Sound Guy Randy, live near me.
Yeah.
So me and Sound Guy Randy would drive up to JP Morgan Mellon Bank, I think it was Mellon Bank of Chase. We would drive up to Woodbridge. We would drive up to that Woodbridge Bank parking lot and wait there on Monday morning for the bank to open up because we knew the deposits for the weekend were in that account. And once a whole bunch of us went in there and got our checks, by 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, that account was going to be no good. So we'd be sitting in the parking lot at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, waiting for the bank to open at 9 so we can run in there and cash our checks.